As a home buyer, when you're talking to a lender, do you know the critical difference between pre-qualification and pre-approval and which one is right for you? Hi, it's Josh Lewis with the Find My Way Home Expert Network. Today we're going to talk about an important topic, and that is the difference between a pre-approval and a pre-qualification. We're going to go through the difference. We're going to go why it matters to you as a buyer, why it matters to the seller, and why it matters to both realtors involved in the transaction. And then the last thing we're going to talk about is what does the pre-approval process look like so you know exactly what to expect. So with that, let's jump in and start by framing the conversation in terms of what is a pre-qualification. Pre-qualification really boils down to back of the napkin numbers. We're going to get on the phone and we're going to have a brief conversation and we're going to talk about how much do you make? How exactly are you paid? Just trying to arrive at an accurate income calculation. And then we're going to talk about how much do you have available for your down payment and closing costs. We're going to go through your credit. We're going to talk about what liabilities you have that show up on the credit report, and then what you think your credit scores are. And with that, we're going to run the numbers and say, on this program, you should qualify for about this much. On this program, you should qualify for about this much. And then go through and answer your questions. So it's definitely a useful exercise in terms of getting some numbers and getting an idea of what you qualify for, but it's really inadequate for giving anyone a ton of confidence in the transaction. Let's look at, in contrast, what a pre-approval interview looks like. We're going to get on the phone and we're going to have a very similar conversation. But really what I'm doing, what your loan professional is doing, is gathering the notes for determining what documentation is going to be needed to get you a full pre-approval. Different borrowers are going to have to provide different types of documentation. A lot of borrowers don't need to provide tax returns. Some do. If you're self-employed or have rentals, you're going to need to provide that. So in that initial consultation, we're still going to go through and answer all your questions. We're going to go through and again, talk about income, but basically with the thought process of determining what documentation we need to gather from you. Same thing with your assets. We're going to talk about not only how much you have available, but where the funds are and what documentation we need to request. We're not going to talk a whole heck of a lot about credit because we know we're going to pull the credit report once we have the complete application. And then we're going to go through what you want in terms of loans, whether you have a specific idea of a loan product, whether you have an idea of a price range, or whether we're trying to work our way back into a payment range that you are comfortable with. Once we gather all that documentation, we're going to run it through what's called an automated underwriting system, and it's going to validate and confirm that after we've determined exactly what your income is, exactly what your assets are that are available for down payment and closing, and exactly what your credit and liability situation looks like, we run it through the automated, and it confirms that you meet the guidelines for FHA, VA, conventional, meaning Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac products. The only programs that for the most part don't have an automated underwriting system are most jumbo loans and most non-QM loans, loans where you're using alternative documentation like bank statements. So why do you care? Why do you care about the difference between a pre-qual or a pre-approval? It's really about peace of mind. Any number of things could be off in that brief interview where we're going through the pre-qualification. You could not know that it's relevant or important that a big portion of your income is bonus or commission, or that you had a large pay raise 6 months ago and things have kind of changed. So by gathering all of the documentation, we can go through with an underwriter's eyes and know exactly what is going to be used for your qualifying income, which liabilities we have to count, which ones can possibly be excluded. We can go through the asset statements and see if there's anything in there that's going to be an issue that we need to take care of ahead of time. So most importantly, when we're done with this, we know not only your qualifications and your debt to income ratios, we know which loan programs you qualify for. So now we can get you really accurate rate quotes. We can get you really accurate figures on cash to close. So you know not only your down payment, but how much you need to have available for your closing costs and any reserves for the loan program that you're looking at. And that from a buyer's perspective is the most important part about the pre-approval interview. Now, let's look about why this is important from the seller. From the seller's perspective, when they're looking to accept an offer, they want to know that you have been fully pre-approved and all of this documentation has been reviewed. And the reason for that is obviously they don't want to put their home under contract and 2 to 3 weeks later find out that something jumped out at us in the process and you don't actually qualify for the loan. People always want to ask me, why, when I talk to a realtor, do they insist on asking, have you been pre-approved? Can I get you connected with my lender? One of the big things that we hear all the time is, do they get a kickback? Why do they always want me to talk to a lender? Well, let's look at how realtors are paid. Much like a loan officer, a realtor does not get paid until you successfully close a transaction. And what that means is they can spend a ton of time, if you're a buyer, driving you around, showing you properties and writing you offers, or as a seller, accepting an offer and getting into escrow and never get paid in that process. So for most people, that's a foreign concept of doing your job for a week or weeks or a month and not possibly getting paid. From their perspective, they want to know that you are a fully approved borrower before moving into that process and showing you homes or writing offers or accepting an offer and tying that up. So again, let's remember that for a realtor, one of their most valuable assets in their business is their relationship in the community, their relationship with other realtors and how they're known. And when they're known for having fully qualified borrowers that perform and follow through on their contract, they're more likely to get the next offer accepted or to be looked upon favorably by other realtors. So it's not that they're wanting you to jump through extra hoops. It's just that everyone knows that the best way to avoid issues and problems at the end of the day is simply to go through the full pre-approval process. So now that we understand why pre-approval versus a pre-qualification is important to everyone in the transaction, let's talk about what that process looks like. Now, for nearly every lender that you would work with, it's going to be a 99% digital process. Especially in the time of COVID where people are not wanting to meet face-to-face. It's going to be an online application where we gather all of the demographic data, your age, your social security number, how long you've lived where you've lived, how long you've been on your current job, your job title, things that would be very boring for us to go through in just an interview process, you can quickly and easily complete in a 7 to 10 minute online application. From there, you're going to get a request through the secure portal for just the exact documentation that you need to provide. Again, people always ask, can you just send me a list of what you're going to need? Say, I can, but we need to spend about 2 to 3 minutes on the phone just answering a few questions. So I'm not asking you for a bunch of stuff that you don't need. So from there, once you complete the application, upload all of your supporting documentation, someone on the lender side is going to set up the file. They're going to pull credit. They're going to run through and just make sure that they don't have any questions or need any additional information from you. Then they're going to run the automated and they're going to prepare some numbers for you to look at. Now from there, from the buyer's end, that's where the fun and interesting conversation starts, because now we can see, what does a payment look like? How much money do I have to have available? And from our end, that's where we start answering a lot of questions. In that initial interview, most of my borrowers don't have a ton of questions, 2, 3, 4, 5 questions, but we'll get into a lot more detail once we have the documentation and have completed the full pre-approval. So if you have questions or would like to get started on the pre-approval process, use the links below. We'll get you connected with an expert in the Find My Way Home network who can go through all of this process with you and make sure you are fully pre-approved. If you've enjoyed the content and you'd like to get updated when we post future videos and stay up to date on everything mortgage and real estate related, use the subscribe button over there and make sure you like and share the video. Again, I hope you found the information useful and we appreciate you showing up.